What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Elementary Season 4, Episode 9. Alma Matters. Yeah. Little play on words. Funny. It's pretty fun. Anyway, um, I I was kind of mixed at first on this episode. Uh, because from the previews from last week's episode, I kind of thought this was going to be a bit more about the hit on Sherlock's dad and what's going on there. I did see in the previews that he did suspect Sherlock, so that was no surprise when it was mentioned. But I honestly thought it was going to be more about that. But what I got was that was kind of going on while the main case for this episode was going on, which was a good case. But it just wasn't what I expected, so that's why at first I was like, I don't know about this one. But the more I thought about it, I realized that whoever tried to take out Sherlock's dad, I'm pretty sure is going to become kind of the main story for this season, and will probably be concluded in the season finale or something, maybe a cliffhanger. So I kind of realized that that's going to be kind of the story line going on behind all of these cases, is trying to find out who tried to kill Sherlock's dad. So, I was originally disappointed, but I'm not anymore. But first I'm going to talk about that because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. One, they have that moment where Sherlock finally confronts him about it and calls him out, mainly because he went to see the Asian guy that works for Interpol that was helping them in a case. And the guy was like freaking out, like, stay away from me. I don't know what your game is, but I don't want any part of it. And that's when Sherlock kind of figures out exactly what's going on and goes and talks to his dad and kind of says, I thought we were trying to work on our relationship, but if you can't even trust the fact that I'm not a murderer, there's no foundation. But left him with a line that I think is probably one of the best so far this season, just because it was perfect. And I've heard it before, but coming from Sherlock, it was brilliant. He says, if I actually wanted you dead, you should know that it wasn't me because you're still alive. I'm just like, that's good. That is a good comeback. But it does leave open a lot of questions. Because, yes, Moreland obviously does have a lot of enemies because he's that type of man. But then again, it's like, it has to be somebody we know. It can't just be some random assassin that was hired by some random businessman. I feel like maybe we are going to be introduced to the actual, killer later on. But I don't know. Something seems fishy about all of it. And the way that Sherlock keeps talking about it, like he proclaims his innocence because I'm not dumb enough to do that stuff. And I'm not saying Sherlock's a killer, but he would be smart enough to pretend to be dumb enough to make it seem like it wasn't him, if that makes sense. And it would be weird, especially because, the main character of the show is Sherlock. So to have him turn out to be a killer, or an attempted killer, would be very interesting. I don't know how they could swing that, so I feel like Sherlock's probably innocent. But the way he keeps talking about it, I keep thinking to myself, well, yeah, but you would know that, somebody spots him in a taxi and he's, that's what his dad was going off of, and he counter argues that, would I really be dumb enough to allow there to be an eyewitness? Like, well, you would be smart enough to know that if you did leave an eyewitness, your dad would assume that would assume it wasn't you because you would be smart enough not to. So a little bit of reverse psychology. Of course, that may just be me thinking way too hard about it. That's probably what it is. Um, but anyway, so watching that stuff, watching it unfold, trying to figure out exactly what it is that, what's the reason that Moreland is actually here, mainly because he wouldn't talk about the attempted assassination because I guess he just wants to keep Sherlock out of it now. I don't know. Um, but it's very, very interesting to see exactly where they're going to take this story and who's going to end up being the guilty culprit. Um, but on to the case for this episode. Like I said, it disappointed me at first because I wanted more about who tried to kill Sherlock's dad. But this was actually a good case. There, there's the robbers that are robbing this one house, and then their lookout man is looking out the window, looks up into another apartment, and sees somebody killing a guy. And so that's, whew, that was out of nowhere. But that's kind of how it starts, and then it shows that's kind of where the I can't think right now. I can't remember how it opens up, but that's the case that they start on, is that man that got killed. And through a little bit of work, they find out this guy was actually going to take on this company because they were doing something wrong. It had something to do with like these past criminals. They were giving a chance for a better life by sending them to school, but the student loans were so bad that it was like they were pretty much ruining their lives. So, very interesting premise, I think. Just sometimes hard to follow. But what was not hard to follow was the fact that once they found out the guy that killed the man up there, by using, Joan was up in the apartment. She sees the apartment down below that, got robbed. She's like, maybe somebody was lookout and, saw that. So, that's how they find out who it was. The guy has a description of him. And then it was also pretty interesting. Detective Bell went to the house of this guy and was talking to his wife. And the wife is like, I haven't seen him for such and such amount. And then you see Detective Bell look over and see like these boots that are wet. And I'm just like, see, they don't show that enough, I don't think. Because Detective Bell is a good detective. Like, Sherlock believes in his skills. We don't see him be a detective enough. And that was a good way to show that. Like, he's sitting there questioning her, she lies about something. He picks up on a clue that, oh, their shoes are wet. It rained yesterday. Are you really going to tell me that you haven't seen him? And I'm just like, see, I want to see more of Bell, like, figuring stuff out, too, more than just, as much as I enjoy Sherlock and Joan, I do want to see a bit more of Bell and Gregson kind of being their own characters, which we have seen that, just not enough for me, in my opinion. I know I just said that redundantly, but I don't care. So, he's questioning there, finally finds out that the guy actually has an alibi for a woman that was killed during, while the episode was going on. She was actually trying to help the guy that was killed. I don't know what's up with my voice this morning, but it may just be sinus stuff, I don't know, but if my voice cracks, try not to laugh too hard. But she was trying to help the guy that was killed in his apartment, and then she was found strangled in her office. Well, they find out that the guy that Bell is looking for actually has an alibi for the day the woman was killed, but he turns himself in for both murders, which, he did kill the guy. They matched up the gun and the slugs to his gun. And so Sherlock comes in and talks to him about it and finds out that he's actually covering for somebody because he understands what the reason is. Um, and through that, they finally find out that he was one of these students that just backlogged in student loan debt because of this company. And so the head guy, and this is one of the few issues I have with this case. When they first go question the head guy, Joan and Belle go to talk to him. Immediately, I was just like, see, he looks like he would be the villain. Like, he just had that look about him. I'm like, that's just too easy. Like, you can't do that. They did do that. He turns out to be the bad guy. They did it well, but at the same time, I'm just like, I don't know. It's just too easy for me. If you show me a guy that looks like, he would be the bad guy, and it turns out to be maybe somebody else that you weren't expecting to be, that would be interesting if you do it well. But when you show me that guy, the first thought in my mind is he did it just by looking at him. That's just too easy. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that feels that way. Maybe I'm the only one that wants a bit more of a challenge for a case. But when I looked at him, I was just like, yep, he looks like the bad guy. And then he turned out to be the bad guy. But the way they did it and the way they solved the case was very interesting because Sherlock caught on to him pretty quickly. The question was, how was he doing it? How was he getting these people, to commit crimes for him? Because these two murders were not the first thing to happen. Like, some place got burned down whenever they were about to give him a bad review or something. There was a case where the swing vote was about to vote against him, and then she got hit and run, and then somebody else stepped in, and now the vote went in his favor. So all of these things are happening that a little bit questionable, and the two murders included. And so, like, you start to realize somebody is doing this stuff for him, and once that information was found out, about all the stuff that was happening, I was like, see, what if it's somebody working for him, trying to help him, but he doesn't realize it? That would be an interesting twist, but they didn't do that. He was actually getting his his nephew-in-law, to seek out these people because he, the nephew-in-law was the one doing the student loan stuff. So he's the one that knew about all these people. So he was hiring them to do these jobs. But I think the reason that I'm not as upset by the fact that it was really predictable is because of the way they finished it. Sherlock was, like, Joan had a list of all the people that could have done it, just strewn out all over the floor, which I like the fact that she's becoming much more like Sherlock now. Because at first, she was just learning, she's becoming a detective, and you could tell by the way her mind thinks that she's thinking a bit more like Sherlock. But in the last episode, and now in this one, last episode she had the wall of madness up, like, connecting points between all of these things. I'm just like, that's a Sherlock move. And then today, or not today, in the last night's episode, she has all of the papers just strewn out all over the floor. I'm like, this is Sherlock move stuff. Like, that's interesting. I like it. But anyway, but Sherlock's like looking through all the stuff and picks up the guy that they already have arrested, and is like looking through his papers, and then all of a sudden just like pulls it up on the computer, plaid. And then Joan's just like, plaid? Like, what are you doing with plaid? It's not plaid, it's tartan. And it's how we're going to solve this case. I'm just like, wait, what? And sure enough, the nephew-in-law is wearing a kilt in one of the pictures. And so that's what he meant by the whole plaid thing. But, the way he does it is this PowerPoint presentation, because they're in a meeting, like all of the board members along with the bad guy. And all of a sudden, like, the lady who's doing the PowerPoint presentation is clicking it, and all of a sudden a mugshot pops up, and I'm like, That's classic Sherlock. Okay, maybe not classic Sherlock, but that's like I think about the very first episode of BBC Sherlock, and um, what's his name? Oh, it's the detective from Scotland Yard. I can't remember his name now. Dang it! But he's in this press conference with his like right hand woman, and they're talking about this case that they've just discovered, and the reporters are all asking these questions like, do you have every single asset available on this? And he's just like, yes, of course we do. And all of a sudden, everybody gets like a text message that says, nope. That's the type of Sherlock that I like to see. You know, somebody who will infiltrate something to make his point, and that's what he does here. Like he overrides the PowerPoint with all of these mugshots, and so when the first mugshot pops up, he like walks in and then grabs it. It's like, I'll take that, and starts just going through the PowerPoint of all the mugshots of these people that were hired to do his bidding. And so, you know, the way he does it, very just eloquently and easy to follow, and I'm just like, I get it. That's good. So overall, I still enjoyed it. It's just with this show, I've come to kind of expect a certain level of enjoyment and good storytelling that I think this episode didn't really have. It wasn't bad, and the stuff on the outside was really good, but the case itself was just a bit too cliche, a bit too predictable, because the guy that you suspect is the killer is the killer. Just how he did it is what you need to solve now, which was done very well. But like when I think about last week's episode, I said it wasn't the same type of episode that we've been getting, because we've been getting like a lot of episodes about like simple stuff that we could find the clues for, follow along with Sherlock, and make our own guesses, our own theories of what happened. Whereas last week's episode involved a lot of, you know, a Russian spy, the Russian embassy. We don't deal with that type of stuff all the time, so it's harder to make a prediction or a theory off of that. This one, it felt a little too easy, and that's kind of my issue, is that I don't want these cases to be easy, because this is Sherlock Holmes, and they've done very well so far. This is 4 seasons in already, and it's very hard to make a good case week after week after week after week, and a good case that would actually be difficult for someone with Sherlock Holmes' capabilities to solve. You know, that type of stuff is really hard to do. And so the fact that this one maybe was a little too easy, but it's been the first one of the season that's been a little too easy, that's good. You know, that is a good way to do it. So, am I disappointed? A little bit, but not too much to the point where I'm just like, oh, the show's lost its touch. It hasn't. It's one week that's a little bit off. And honestly, you know, even though this case was a little bit off, the stuff on the outside was still good enough to catch my attention and make me think, okay, I want to see where this is going now. So, it's got certain things that work. It's got a couple things that don't. But, hey, that's television. Sometimes you have an episode that just doesn't cut it. But we'll see how it goes next week. Hopefully, I'm really hoping that this kind of becomes a running storyline, the whole thing, what happened with Sherlock's father. Because that is a good case, and I'm excited to see what happened. You know, how is this all going to tie together? What's going on? So, we'll see where it goes, and let me know what you think of this episode down in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe for more elementary, and I'll see you at the next review. Peace out.